Hello, Great Amount Olive. This is Pastor Douglas, and I'm here on today with the leader of our social justice ministry, Reverend Josh Busby, and also our sister Jillian Whitaker with Better Black News. And we're here with candidate for Oklahoma County Sheriff, Wayland Cubit. And we want to be able to allow Mr. Cubit to share with us as a congregation his ideas of leadership and policing for Oklahoma County and why we should support him in the upcoming election on June 30th. Reverend Busby?
Hello, thanks again for tuning in. Today we are hearing from Officer Cubit, who's a candidate for the Oklahoma County Sheriff. Really excited to hear from him and his plans. And so without further ado, one thing we'll say is that early voting has started today, as well as tomorrow and Saturday. And of course, or you can wait until Tuesday to cast your vote at the poll. But we definitely wanted to let you know that you're able to vote now if you desire to do so. And at this time, we'll turn it over to Sister Jill.
Yes, hello, and thank you all for having me again. Let's jump right into it. Hi, Mr. Cubit. Tell us about yourself.
I'm doing wonderful. I'm glad you reminded me about early voting because COVID, our numbers are going up. And so I really like people to be safe and get to the lesser crowd. And the lesser crowds will be today, tomorrow, and Saturday. So thanks for saying that.
Yes. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, so first of all, I'm a husband of 27 years, 28 years coming up this September. And my
congratulations.
Thank you very much. We have 4 kids, all adult, and we have 8 foster and adoptive kids we've had in 27 years. And so I like to say, you know how families are. We weren't planning on being foster and adoptive parents. That's not what we were like signing up to do, but duty called in our family and around us. And so we had the knowledge, skill, and ability and the resources, and we did what we had to do as a family to fill in the gap. And so we've dealt with all kinds of things in our family. And so I like to point out that yes, I'm a police officer, and I've been a police officer for 24 years, but police work is what I do. It's not who I am. And so what makes me who I am is that marriage, those kids, those foster kids. And I think my experience with the foster care system, my experience of stepping into those spots actually makes me good at what I do, right? We've had to deal with DOC and DHS. We've had to deal with mental health services. We had to deal with addiction in our family. We've had to deal with the county jail and all of those things. And I found myself a pretty resourceful person. I mean, I've been a police officer and connected in our community for a long, long time. But those experiences actually give me the heart to serve at a different level than maybe some other candidates and other people do. So yeah, that's what I've been a police officer for 24 years, and the last 12 of it, I think most of the people at your church will probably recognize my work for what I do on the Northeast side and the South side and community relations, dealing with a youth outreach program and some of the outreach that I do for community policing for the Oklahoma City Police Department. So we've done that for the 12 years, and I'm happy to say that work has led to national recognition, where we've been presenting at the National Mentoring Conference on mentoring. And so I'm known around the city and now maybe a little nationally as a master mentor, right? And so that's another proud hat that I wear, is that I'm able to connect with young people on a level that other people are not able to do. Yeah.
Okay. So tell us why you're pursuing the office of Oklahoma County Sheriff.
Well, that's a really long story, but I will tell it to you like this. Just
summarize it.
I'm gonna summarize it. Really, I'm doing it out of obedience. Right. Okay. That is right. Because I'm doing really, really fine. I love my position. I love my work, but there was a disturbance in my belly for a long time that I needed to do something greater with my knowledge, with my skill, with my ability, with my connections, with my resources. And until I made the decision that I needed to do this, I didn't sleep. And so I know that this is a calling, a leadership calling that I've been called to. And so that's why I'm doing it. I know that I've developed a lot of knowledge and skill in law enforcement that I'm able to communicate with the community at large that don't really understand law enforcement the way I do. And so I have the ability to lead, the ability to encourage, the ability to inspire others. And that's what leadership is all about, is we need to lead, encourage, and inspire people to do things they know they ought to be doing in the first place, and cast vision. And so that's why I'm doing it.
Okay. So talk to our viewers a little bit about the importance of voting.
Well, so this is a big one. And I know we hear this a lot all the time, but every election is local. We look at CNN and we look at MSNBC, and some of us might even look at Fox, whatever. But we do that, and they're talking about the presidential election. They're talking about stuff that is not local. But if these elections right here does not come down to an electoral college, your vote actually counts, right? And they count for people that you will see at your churches. They count for people that you will have dinner with, you will see around town, people that you can walk down to their office, people that you can actually hold accountable to what the decisions they make. And so it's very, very important for you to be able to cast your vote for local people that you can see and hold accountable to what they promise and what they intend to do and what they say they're going to do. And so these are very, very important elections. Not necessarily, they're important nationally too, but not near as important as what we have locally, and because every single vote counts.
Okay.
Jill, I better not lose by one.
You're not, okay?
Right.
What do you think is Oklahoma County's most pressing law enforcement issue?
Right. So about last year, I did a TED Talk on, you can find it on YouTube, but it seems more relative now than it was even then a year ago, when we talked about implicit bias and how to build bridges and unity. And so when I started out my campaign in January, one of the first things, one of the pillars of my campaign would be building community trust and legitimizing law enforcement authority, right? And I have a whole lot of other things that I like to do, but there's no need to even mention those other things because they're not important if the community doesn't trust you, right? So the number one thing, my grandkids about to come in, so hold on, I got to be pawpaw for a second. Hey, be quiet. Thank you. So building trust and legitimacy is number one. I'm sorry, that's who I am.
It's okay.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. That's what makes this authentic. So it's okay. Get them babies in order. Get them in order.
Yes, yeah. So building trust and legitimacy. Our community does not particularly, listen, when people see uniform, some people automatically see and believe that symbolizes justice. And when some people see the uniform, it symbolizes oppression and misplaced power.
Most
right?
definitely.
And so what we need to do is we need to build, the pressing issue is that everybody sees justice, feels justice, and believes that that's what that symbolizes. And we got a lot of work to do that. There's a lot of history behind what we do, and we need to own it, acknowledge it, and use that as the context from which we police the next day.
Okay. What do you see as the sheriff's primary role?
Well, on a practical basis, the sheriff for Oklahoma County's practical role is there's 18 or 19 other small jurisdictions inside of Oklahoma County, inside of the 650 square miles of Oklahoma County. And so those are smaller jurisdictions outside of Oklahoma City. And so a lot of them need the support from the sheriff and the county sheriff. But there's also 150 miles where there's unincorporated, there's no city, and there's citizens that live there. And so the main priority for the sheriff is to take care of those unincorporated, unpoliced areas. And so that would be the main practical purpose for the sheriff. But also remember the jail, although the county jail was the responsibility of the sheriff, that is now splitting. But I don't want to lose sight of the fact that the sheriff still sits on the board of the jail trust and still has influence on what happens with the jail. Our citizens will still be in the jail. They will still be impacted by incarceration of the Oklahoma County Jail. And so, although it's not the primary role of the sheriff anymore, it was a very important primary part of my heart and significant role for the sheriff. Okay.
As an elected official, how can you impact community policing in and out of the county?
Well, so community policing is my heart, and I'm going to really summarize this story really quick, but it will give you the point that I want to make. So the program that I run called FACT and created back in 2007, I've mentored several kids, and several officers have mentored several kids through that. 10 years ago, I had a young man that was there. He was wonderful. He's 25 now. He called me just recently because he wanted to talk to and meet me. I said, sure, come on in, man. I haven't seen you in so long. You're a grown man now. He walks in and he tells me that back in the summer, early in the year, that he had done something that he needed to tell me. I said, well, you can tell me anything. What he actually told me was that he was involved in an incident where he shot and killed a man. And I'm like, whoa, what are you doing? He says, well, I need to tell you all about it. I'm like, no, you don't need to tell me all about it because I don't want to be a part of your case. You need to turn yourself in. What are you doing? He said, well, I believe that the reason I did that was to protect my life and to save life for us. I don't want to know the details, bro. I said, but why didn't you turn yourself in then? Why didn't you turn yourself in then? If you thought you did the right thing, why didn't you stop and let the police? And he said, because I'm young and I'm Black. And I didn't think they would give me a fair shot. And so I ran. And I've been hiding. And I haven't talked to my mother, he said. I haven't talked to my kids. And it's not been able to sleep. And he said that my father had been in a very similar incident when I was 12 years old. He committed suicide, and I'm to that point. He said, but I look back over my life, and I know that there's a police officer that I trust, and that's you. And so I wanted to tell you and ask you if you will take me down to turn myself in. And I called my pastor. My pastor came down and prayed with him, and I drove him down to the homicide office. We get down to the homicide office. This whole incident was caught on camera. They talked to him, and they said they let him go. They didn't charge him. It was self-defense. So all this year, he was on the run, and he knew that he was legitimate. He knew what he did was protecting his own self. But because he didn't believe that law enforcement would give him a fair shot because of the color of his skin, he ran and was contemplating suicide. And so this is the reason I bring this up to your question, is because he came to a unit at the police department that he knew he could trust. There was a unit of community policing that he could trust. And I know now that we're failing as a department because he should have been able to come to a community policing agency, not just a unit, right? And so it became real important to me. Last year community policing has always been important to me, but it's not a unit anymore to me. It needs to be an agency all the way around. They should know that any police officer that they meet can be trusted with their life.
Wow.
Right? And so when you talk about community policing, that is what I'm thinking about. The responsibility of the sheriff will be. Creating agency.
That's heavy. Okay. We're going to move into our last question. I want to make sure I get this correctly. So I want to read it. How would you as sheriff seek to demonstrate and balance the rigorous enforcement of the rule of the law with compassion and respect for all the residents of Oklahoma County?
So the balance is never easy, but balance is what we seek, right? And so the thing about compassion is to suffer with, right? And to suffer with means you have to listen with more than just your ears. You have to listen with your heart, right? And I think law enforcement for a long time has been listening with our ears, and we're trying to make, we were saying that's people's perception, that's not the reality. But when you listen with your heart and you care about people, you try to make their perception real to you, and you try to do something about it. And so what we want to do is we want to create the type of training, the training introduction that keeps law enforcement listening with their heart, not just with their ears, right? And so compassion means to suffer with. That means we have to be in the community. We have to be with them, not separate from them.
Great. Yeah. Okay. Do you have any closing remarks?
No, I probably would, but my grandbabies are dying to hug my neck, so I got to get to my grandbabies.
Well, Pastor Douglas, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right. Hey, thank you, Officer Cubit. Of course, as Josh told us, the election has already started. Early voting is happening right now. For our members, those who are watching this, what can they do to help you between now and Tuesday?
Right. So you can go to, like right now, go to cubitforsheriff.com, sign up, get the email list, volunteer, do those type of things. Get on my Facebook page, like and share everything that we post, because it's all important. It's all important to the campaign. And then most importantly, I know people don't like this, but I got to say it, that the way you win elections is by raising money to get your message out. And so donate, $5, $10, $20, $2,000, whatever your heart desires to support this campaign is very much needed and very much welcome. And I'm honored to have the opportunity to serve as your next sheriff.
All right. Thank you. Reverend Busby?
Officer Cubit, thanks so much again for joining us for this amount of time. To our members, hopefully this was a very informing platform for you. Again, remember that early voting the poll is open today and tomorrow from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. and then from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Saturday. So if you're worried about social distancing and everything that's going on, you can absolutely cast your vote early. And so, Officer Cubit, thanks so much. We wish you well, and God bless.
Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Hey, welcome, Greater Mount Olive. This is Pastor Douglas, and I am here with Reverend Josh Busby, who's the leader of our social justice ministries, and also with Jillian Whitaker, Better Black News. And we're also have Virgil Green, who is a Democratic candidate for Oklahoma County Sheriff for the election, primary election that will be on this Tuesday, June the 30th. And so we want you to be able to find out about him, learn as much as you can to decide prayerfully who you will support in this election. Reverend Busby?
Thanks, Pastor. Hello to everybody out there. Thanks for viewing. We are excited to hear from Mr. Virgil Green today, who has an extensive background in law enforcement, as he is the Democratic nominee for the highest ranking law enforcement position in Oklahoma County. So we are excited to hear from him, and we're thankful for him being able to join us. Jill, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you all for having me again. So we'll go ahead and jump right into it. Mr. Green, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hopefully I won't take up too much of your time, but I will kind of share with you where I came from and how I got here to Oklahoma City. So I'm a native of Hobbs, New Mexico, which is in southeast New Mexico. Graduate of Hobbs High School in 1982. Got my law enforcement career started at a young, early age of 22 when I got a position with the Lee County Sheriff's Department in the county seat of Lovington, New Mexico. Was there for a couple of years and moved to Norman, Oklahoma in 1989, and was in the car dealership business. Kind of got away from law enforcement for a little while. Was in the car dealership business for a number of years, and in 1997, I became an officer with the Oklahoma City Housing Authority. Kind of go back to my upbringing in New Mexico. I was raised in the Church of Christ, where I attended Roxana Street Church of Christ. So baptized as a member of the Church of Christ, and so came up in a family that was definitely rooted with coming from the church. So moved to, actually I took the Oklahoma Highway Patrol test for a trooper in 1987. And it was about, I think they were hiring something like 77 troopers. There were probably well over 700 people who took the test. I passed that, but didn't make it through all the other processes. So me and my former wife, we moved to Norman, Oklahoma in '89. And like I said, in 1997, I became an officer with the Oklahoma City Housing Authority. I was there up until 2002. And in between there, I became an officer with the Boley Police Department. And in 2001, I was hired as the police chief for Boley Police Department, which I'm pretty sure everybody knows about Boley, being the Boley Rodeo. So, so in 2008, I had the opportunity to get into the private sector while I was still a police chief in Boley, and I became the executive director for Mothers Against Drunk Driving for the state of Oklahoma. So our state office was located here in Oklahoma City. We had an office in Tulsa, so I operated the state office as well as the office in Tulsa. So they gave me an insight into nonprofits. MAD is one of the largest nonprofit organizations when it comes to dealing with combating drinking and driving. So they gave me a lot of other experience I didn't have when it came to capacity building, fundraising. I managed an annual budget of about a little over $800,000. We had probably over 100 volunteers and about 5 or 6 staff members that was operated in Oklahoma City and Tulsa. Did that for a couple of years and was still a police chief. And then in 2011, I resigned from Boley and took the police chief's position in the city of Spencer. So I was in the city of Spencer from 2011 to 2015. And I applied for a position in Arkansas, a national position, and made it through the process of 38 candidates. And obviously I must have said something right where they ended up selecting me as the police chief for Helena, West Helena. So 2015, became the police chief in Helena, West Helena, Arkansas, and was there when I actually ran for sheriff in 2017, in a special election, when John Wetzel retired. So I was the first African American in the history of Oklahoma County to ever run for sheriff. And in that race, unfortunately, I lost by 700 votes. But it was a learning experience. I ended up getting something like 6,700 votes. So it was definitely had a lot of encouragement after that. People said, hey, you really need to think about this again when it comes back up. So here we are again in 2020, and I'm a candidate again for Oklahoma County Sheriff. And me and my family, we live in Southeast Oklahoma City. I have an 18 and 19-year-old at home. We have a large family. I have 2 older kids from a previous marriage. Well, my wife, she has 3. And we have about 18 grandkids. So we have a large Thanksgiving and Christmas and other holidays that we have.
Okay. Can you tell us why you're actually pursuing the office of Oklahoma County Sheriff?
Well, I am pursuing because, number one, like I said, I ran before, and I believe, I have the experience as being a police chief and managing multiple police departments. Managing those multiple police departments has given me where I have oversaw municipal budgets. I've oversaw several different divisions, criminal investigation divisions, 911 communication centers, everything that involves with running a police department. That is what I've done over the past 20 years as a police chief. I've been in law enforcement for over 25 years, but the past 20 years have been spent as a police chief.
Okay.
So, and I believe that it is definitely time, with everything that's going on in our communities, to have a sheriff who will get into this position and will do some meaningful things for our minority communities and our poor and marginalized communities, and be a voice that has never been there before. And so I think there's time for change. There's always this good old boy system that's been in place, and that system has not been fair to our minority deputies. And so there needs to be advancements in those ranks. So I just believe that I have the capacity to take the sheriff department into the 21st century of community policing.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about why voting is so important to our viewers?
Well, I've been voting ever since I was 18, and my parents instilled that into me. And because I was born in 1963, and I remember when I was in the 3rd grade in Hobbs, the schools were still segregated, and 3rd grade, we ended up going to schools that were not segregated. So I come up in that era where, toward the tail end of everything going on with the civil rights. But it was definitely something that I grew up knowing a lot about, the voting, the stroke, everything that went on with the civil rights. And so, you hear a lot of people say, well, my vote don't count. And I tell people, think about that one council person or that one state representative or that one congressman who lost by 1 vote, and your vote counts. And so I had this conversation with a young man yesterday at a local convenience store, and he wasn't interested in voting and said that his vote didn't count. And we had a little conversation, and I told him, you know, your vote counts. Your vote means something. There's people who died and went through a lot to give us the right to vote. So young people really need to understand how important it is, especially in our local election. You know, an election like the sheriff's election, an election like our city council, our county commissioners. So people just really need, especially in our community, the African American community, where we kind of take that, no, I'm not going to go to the polls because my vote doesn't count. It is very, very important that we continue to educate our young people on getting to the polls to vote.
Okay. What do you think is Oklahoma County's most pressing law enforcement issue?
Wow. I guess besides rebuilding the torn relationships that the sheriff department probably has with the minority communities, and you know, there's an issue between several of the county commissioners with the current sheriff administration. So, you know, there's funding issues with the sheriff department that obviously those funds are controlled by the county commissioner. So making sure that, because at the end of the day, the service that the sheriff department provides is for every resident of Oklahoma County, whether you live in an unincorporated or an incorporated area of Oklahoma County. The sheriff department is the chief law enforcement officer of the county. So it needs to be adequately funded. And the biggest thing is just rebuilding our relationships with our minority communities, our African American and our Latino communities, because with everything that's going on with immigration, you have people who feel that they've been here for decades, but they're undocumented. So if they become a victim of a crime, they don't want to report those crimes. So we really need to do a better job of making individuals feel that when they become a victim of a crime, that they feel safe to report that to law enforcement. So those are some of the things that I feel that are pressing issues. But the main thing, with everything that's going on with all of the things that happened in Minneapolis and some of the things that even happened here in Oklahoma City, that we just really need to do a better job in reaching out to our minority communities.
Okay. What do you see as the sheriff's primary role? Like, what do you see the sheriff's primary role being?
Well, the sheriff department is divided into, right now there is 5 divisions, and it will be 4 divisions once the jail goes under the jail trust authority. So those 4 divisions are the administrative, judicial, operations, and support division. But the primary role of the agency is to patrol the 718 square miles of Oklahoma County. So we need to make sure that we've got enough deputies who can cover that large amount of a square foot, but Oklahoma City makes up the majority of that, and a lot of it is unincorporated or incorporated outside of the Oklahoma City metro area. So we need to just make sure that our sheriff has a good relationship with our 9 municipality police departments. Mm-hmm. And currently, right now, that relationship is pretty torn because of me being a former police chief in Spencer for about 4 years. We had a semi-good relationship with the sheriff department, but there was a lot of things that, you know, the sheriff never came and visited the police chiefs on the eastern side of Oklahoma County. So there's a lot of things that can be done to change the culture within the sheriff department. And but to go back to the primary role is to making sure that the citizens are safe and that we're providing the resources that we need to be providing to those non-municipal police departments. And those agencies, and if I can stress on this, a lot of our agencies, like Arcadia, as an example, Arcadia is a one-man police department with 1 full-time chief. They operate with a lot of reserve officers. So there's a lot of times they may not have their own police officer in Arcadia. And so it's upon the sheriff department to really supplement those law enforcement services in Arcadia, even in Forest Park. So there's a lot of things that we can do that the Sheriff Department plays a significant role in that we can do better. And with me being a police chief for 20 years and not understanding and how small and rural agencies work, I think, I'm that candidate who knows, who's been on, who I use the term boots on the ground, because I've been a working police chief for 20 years. So I don't just sit at a desk. I get out and put on a uniform and get out in the field and work with the officers that are employed by the agency.
Okay. As an elected official, how can you impact community policing in and out Oklahoma County?
Well, the first and foremost is just being a very strong voice, being an advocate for community policing throughout the county, and just really educating our public and our citizens about community policing. Oftentimes a lot of agencies say, "Oh, we do community policing," but what are you really doing, and what impact is it really having on the community, and is it having a positive impact? And that's the main thing, a positive impact. And that just means getting with our local churches, getting with our anybody that's a stakeholder in a community, and bringing them to the table and having them a part of that conversation about community policing and what community policing should look like. Because what community policing may look like in Nichols Hills may be totally something different in Spencer, or it may be totally something different in any other metro city. So, and we really need to make sure that community policing is targeting the concerns and needs of, say, like our Latino community. What are the concerns that they need, and how can we provide better services in community policing to our Latino community? Even in Northeast Oklahoma City, what can we be doing better to provide the law enforcement services in Northeast Oklahoma City? And also in making sure that we're working with our law enforcement partners, such as Oklahoma City Police Department and those 9 municipal agencies that I mentioned to you. One of the things that I have done over the 20 years is there's a national program called National Night Out, and National Night Out brings law enforcement and the communities together with their homeowners associations, and it's a way for the community to really get to know the police. And I've kind of flipped that around, because I think it's a better way for the police to get to know the communities, because oftentimes we don't do a good job of getting to know our communities that we work in. And we have a lot of officers who don't live in these communities. They may live in Edmond, or they may live in, Moore somewhere. So they're coming into Northeast Oklahoma City or whatever parts of the city. And so they don't have a connection with the community. So one of the things that I would definitely implement would be either hosting or co-hosting a national night out, to where we are just doing a better job of communicating with our citizens and making our citizens feel more comfortable, and that they can actually trust the police.
Okay. For our last question, I'm going to read it to you. How would you as sheriff seek to demonstrate and balance the rigorous enforcement of the rule of law with compassion and respect for all residents of Oklahoma County?
Well, I would just go back to, the sheriff department, in just educating both the police officers and the public about the principles of good policing, and how the sheriff department and other law enforcement agencies can avoid conflicts with police and citizens. And we all know that, there's laws that we have to enforce. We all know that. But how do we go by enforcing those laws? Give an example. A single mom, she's, dropped the kids off from school. She's trying to make it to work. She gets, she's stopped by an officer, she's speeding. Well, an officer doesn't know that mom's struggles and what she's going through. So he issues her a citation. So now that citation may be, $200. And so now she has to figure out, how do I pay this ticket? Now, but we all know, yeah, she was speeding, but instead of that officer giving her a warning or just a verbal, saying, hey, ma'am, slow it down, that officer now has caused her a problem that now she may have to decide, I can't do this for my children, or I'm going to have to go without buying certain things for my family. So we need to have more compassion. Our officers really need to understand that people are going through some struggles that we just don't know what they're going through. And how can we be better public servants? And I think that's a word that's often that's not used a lot, is public servants. And how can we be better public servants, be more compassionate with our citizens, and especially knowing that, because we even got police officers that are going through some struggles that people don't know about. But I've always said you treat people the way you want to be treated. And I think that's how our parents brought us up. And I think oftentimes our police officers forget that we don't treat people the way we want to be treated. So we really need to focus on that. And I've always told my officers that if we can help somebody, that is what we need to do. If you can avoid giving a person a ticket, or if you can avoid taking a person to jail, that is what we need to do. Because at the end of the day, our job is to be better public servants. And how can we better serve our communities?
Okay. Well, thank you for speaking with us today, Pastor Douglas. I'm going to turn it back over to you. And thank you again, Mr. Green.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Mr. Green, for being here and answering the questions that we have, that our membership can make an informed decision. Election day is Tuesday officially. Early election has started. Early voting has started already. What can the viewer, our members, do to help you? What can we do to help you in this process?
Well, one of the things, Pastor, I tell everybody, look at everybody's law enforcement experience. Each of the candidates come from a background in law enforcement, but what does that experience entail? What is that? What have I done, or what have anybody else done? How well? It is not so much how well you are known in the community, but going back and doing your research on each candidate to see how impactful they have been in those communities that they serve. I have a website. That website is www.greenforsheriff.us. That's www.greenforsheriff.us. And you can go to my website and you can see my experiences. You can see my qualifications. And you can see everything that I've been involved with in law enforcement, from me serving as the first African-American on our Chiefs Association board, for me serving as the first African-American of our Metro Chiefs Association, me being a part of our legislative committee, me being involved with policy making, making sure our police departments are accredited throughout the state of Oklahoma. So for 20 years, I've been actively involved in law enforcement in Oklahoma to definitely make sure that we do some reform. There's been some resistance to that reform, but we have a long way to go. So, I would just encourage, your members and everybody else who views this here to go to my campaign website, go to my Facebook page, campaign website, and just see who Virgil Green is. And I want to earn every vote. And I want people to don't make a decision on a candidate just because you went to school with him or you work with him, but what can that candidate really do from day one when they enter into the sheriff's office? Because this is a big election. This is the first time that most likely we will definitely have a Black Democrat candidate. There'll be a nominee going to the general election. And it's very possible that we could have the first African-American sheriff in the history of Oklahoma County. So, and this is I think this is an important election for the Black community. And I think we really need to make sure that we are selecting somebody who has the qualification and the experience and it just goes, you know, there's a lot of things that everybody says, well, hey, you know, I like this person. But again, I just want people to look at my experience and my qualifications and make a good judgment on that if I should earn their vote. And also just spread the word. If I'm somebody that you feel is worthy of your vote, share that with your family and friends, and with other people that you may go to church with. So I think if we just get the word out, because again, we're in the last days of, we're just now starting early voting, but the primary is on Tuesday, so we've got it's coming up pretty quick.
Well, thank you again for joining us. Rem Busby, you have any last words?
You're on mute.
I think you're muted.
Sorry about that. Thanks for taking time to speak with us and our congregation on behalf of Social Justice Ministry. Thank you again, and to our members. Again, remember that early voting is Thursday, Friday from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., Saturday from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Then, of course, if you want to vote on Tuesday, Election Day, you are welcome to do that. So thank you so much for viewing, and God bless you all.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.